Alright, welcome back to the channel, ladies and gents. Today's video is going to be the, what is it, 6th? Is that? Yeah, 6th and final video of the Which Hero Should I Be series. And I'm particularly excited for this one because I truly love every single villain that is in the original trilogy era. From Maul all the way to Bossk. I just think they're all such amazing heroes, and once you get to learn how to use them, you'll feel the exact same way. I'm sure of it. But without wasting any more time, let's get right into this video. First up, we have Boba, and he's got the 3 abilities: Concussion Rocket, For the Hunt, and Rocket Barrage. And Boba did not used to have a health on elimination card, and he didn't have that passive ability either, so he was much more difficult to use back in the day. But now, with the changes, of course, most heroes do have that passive ability, so he is now a god tier hero once you get to learn how to use him. Now, I say ignore those star cards that I have on screen because those are specific to heroes versus villains. I use that to take down heroes. One of them does more damage to heroes, and then one of them is like a better burst of rockets. That one maybe you can take away and use in Galactic Assault or Supremacy now, or even co-op. But I would not recommend using the one that does extra damage to heroes because I don't believe it does enough extra damage to be worthwhile unless you're in a specifically heroes versus villains lobby. Now, let's move on to his actual abilities. The Rocket Barrage, like I just talked about, is supposed to be 3 rockets, or if you've got that star card, I believe it turns into 5. When it's completely upgraded, it will turn into 5 rockets, and it will just shoot them quicker, so it'll still land the same amount of time as if you had 3 rockets. But I like to use his blaster a lot more than his Rocket Barrage. You get a couple shots off on an opponent with the blaster, and then you use the Rocket Barrage, and odds are if you hit 1 or 2 rockets, that opponent will die, just depending on which class they're playing as. Maybe they're an Enforcer and it's going to take a few more extra hits. I like to use the blaster to at least get them to half health before I decide to use my Rocket Barrage. Another great thing is For the Hunt. It reveals enemies to Boba. It also allows him to have unlimited jetpack fuel. Well, unlimited as long as For the Hunt is active, which makes it a great tool for flying around and getting away from dangerous situations. I prefer the star card that actually extends the duration for how long For the Hunt can be active. And on to his last ability, the Concussion Rocket, which when fired close to, I guess, opponents with blasters, I mean that goes as well for heroes with blasters, it will, of course, concuss them. That's the obvious ability, kind of like the officer's grenade. When it explodes near you, it will concuss you. But if you have a star card equipped that changes it just a little bit, it will then also overheat the blasters of everyone in the proximity that got hit with the Concussion Rocket. So it makes it very effective for swooping in after you've concussed an enemy, dropping, getting some solid hits off, and then maybe flying away before they could even touch you. Or you may be able to finish them off since they can't shoot back at you for a short period of time. But other than that, Boba is a pretty good character. Once you get to learn how to use his jetpack, maybe conserve fuel, know which situations to use it, and which situations to hold on to that fuel, you will become a much better Battlefront player. So let's move on to the next villain. Now I know I covered Bossk already in this series, but that's because he is in 2 different eras, so I'm just going to cover him again quickly. He's got the Dioxis Grenade, he's got Predator Instincts, and Proximity Mines as his 3 abilities. He does not have the passive ability of Health on Elimination, however. That is a little bit different than the typical villain is going to be. He will, however, fully regenerate his health if you stay out of combat long enough. It does regenerate pretty slow, so you will have to kind of stay back for a little while, but luckily that's where that Dioxis Grenade comes into play. You can still affect the battlefield even if you're hanging back. That Dioxis just spews out gas, and while it doesn't actually do too much damage, it seems to almost always deter players away from wherever it is spewing out gas. They will avoid it at all costs. It really blows my mind because it doesn't do as much damage as people act like it does when they play the game. But I'm not complaining because it definitely clears crowds, that is for sure. But let's move on to those 3 abilities: the Dioxis Grenade, the Predator Instincts, and the Proximity Mines. The Proximity Mines are great if, let's say, a enemy hero with a lightsaber is getting a little too close to you. You can set those down, and typically they'll back away, but even if they don't, they will take a ton of damage from those Proximity Mines, and you will have a bit of an edge when fighting them. His Predator Instincts will give him thermal vision and an explosive grenade launcher. That thermal vision is absolutely outstanding when it comes to finding, I guess, enemies in general. It is a very useful thing that they added to his weapon. And then last, but definitely not least, is the Dioxis Grenade. I already kind of briefly talked about it, but it is very great for close quarters type maps. This is probably not the best map for it because it's very open, and I mean, there's so many ways you can get around. It's more better for situations such as on, let's say, Supremacy in the Clone Wars era, when you're on a capital ship and you're trying to prevent the enemy from getting further. Or let's say you're on the enemy ship and you want them away from the objective so you can go capture it. You throw that Dioxis Grenade right next to the objective, they will all back off, just like that. So I think it's about time to move on to the next villain. Now for Iden, she's got the Stun Droid, the Pulse Cannon, and the Droid Shield. But her blaster also has a secondary fire mode, since it is the TL50, and if you're a big heavy user, you already know that that gun has a alternative fire for just the normal heavy class. So that is, like, I guess her 4th ability, if anything. But yeah, let's move on. So the Stun Droid is great for keeping people at bay. It's especially great for heroes versus villains. You will shock them all and they can't move. It's great to get a bunch of headshots with that TL50 while enemies are shocked. The Pulse Cannon, which I personally find hard to hit targets with, but I've never been very big into the Specialist class, and that is exactly what that gun is for. It's for the big heavy Specialist users. If you can land your shots, and I'm talking like headshots, you charge it up just a little bit. It's like Bossk weapon. When you charge it up, you can land a pretty good headshot. You can take all of that, I guess all the base classes, the Assault, Officer, and Specialist, and Heavy as well. You can take all of their health, but the Enforcers and the heroes, you can take probably around half, just depending on which hero it is. Then the final ability, the Shield, is very great if you are taking a ton of damage and you just need to get out of wherever you are for just a few seconds so you can regenerate some of that health. That is what that Shield is used for. And then that alternative fire you just saw me use right there is her secondary fire, and then the normal blast is, of course, the TL50's just crazy rate of fire. But I like to use the star cards that allow it to build less heat, and the star card that also allows me to shoot the alternative fire more frequently. Anyway, that's going to be it for Iden. Let's move on to the next villain. And now for Vader, one of my favorites. He's got Lightsaber Throw, Focused Rage, and Choke. He, of course, has that passive ability of Health on Elimination, and I prefer all of Vader's star cards that don't target a specific ability. So, gives him additional health, gives him stamina back from eliminating opponents, and gives him additional stamina for blocking blaster fire. I think it's about 20% longer, but I believe those are his best star cards. So, the Furious Saber Throw travels ridiculously far, even without a bonus star card allowing it to travel further, and it does some solid damage on the way forward as well as on the way back. You will see me one-hit and two-hit opponents several times in the clips down below. Another great thing is his Choke ability. He can now block blaster fire while he's choking. Before, I would have said Choke was a weaker ability because you are choking someone and you stand there and you just soak up blaster fire. Your aim doesn't even have to be good because Vader is just sitting still while he's choking someone. But now I think it's one of the best abilities in the game, you can choke someone while another person's shooting at you and block those bullets right back at the person who just shot them at you, which is super cool. It's just like the movies. Another reason I love Vader. So I'm really glad they made that a thing in this game. On to that last ability, his Focused Rage. He does additional damage as well as gets some bonus health. It's kind of like Yoda's Presence ability, and it makes him an absolute tank. You'll see I was at 1,050 health at one point. That's a little wild that a hero gets that much health. Can you imagine trying to take that much health away from someone? It's probably not going to happen by yourself. But you do see me struggle with Luke a little bit here. Luke is definitely Vader's kryptonite, and they made that accurate towards the movies in this game, which I really appreciate. But it's also a little hard to play Vader when you are in heroes versus villains, because honestly, Luke is everyone's kryptonite on the villain side of things. Anyway, that's it for Vader. Let's move on to the next villain. Alright, Palpatine has entered the chat. We've got Chain Lightning, Dark Aura, I guess. I actually have never said that out loud. I don't know how that's pronounced. And Electrocute. Man, I really don't know how that's pronounced. Aura? That's going to bug me. Whatever. He's got that passive ability of health on elimination. And again, for Palpatine, I like the star cards that don't target any of his specific abilities. They all help his lightning. And that's amazing because his lightning does not travel very far. And it doesn't do a whole lot of damage. So I do the star cards that make it travel further, do increased damage, things of that nature. That is what you want to focus on, is his lightning. His abilities are great, don't get me wrong. They're just good enough without star cards. You don't need to boost them unless maybe it's the chain lightning number of targets. If you get him in some close quarters and it's a whole bunch of people standing right next to each other, you want that chain lightning to bounce to so many people on their team. It'd be great if it would bounce to everyone, but there is of course a limit, and that's what the star card is for, is increasing that. Now his Dark Aura, we're just going with that. I'm done. It is a big circle around him, a storm cloud of, a storm cloud, but then it's also got electricity that damages anyone within that circle. So it's really great for heroes that are blocking with their lightsaber. They cannot stop that damage from occurring because it's a giant mystical storm cloud. Like, how do you block that, you know? So it's a great way to finish off enemies if they're trying to restore health with their block. Electrocute is his little way of stopping enemies in place, and it's a great way for you to get some starting damage on an opponent. So you electrocute them, they are stuck in place, being shocked there for a second, and you light them up with your regular palm lightning. The last one is the chain lightning. When you hit one target on that team, it will bounce if there is another target within proximity, and it will keep bouncing until it either doesn't have another target in proximity or it has reached the maximum number of targets. And I believe by default it is 4. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I believe it's 4. If someone knows for sure, let me know in the description below, or in the comments. What am I saying? And I will put it in the description for y'all. So other than that, there's not a whole lot. Palpatine, he's pretty easy to use, and it seems like his little dash where he spins like that, it recharges a little bit quicker than the typical hero's dash, which is a nice little bonus. Maybe that's just me, but it feels like it recharges quicker. Anyway, let's move on to the last villain. And last, we've got Darth Maul. He's got the Furious Throw, the Chokehold, and the Spin Attack. He also has that passive health on elimination, and the star cards I like to focus on is the one that allows him to, when he's hit with blaster fire, he takes less damage, and his ability recharge speed is increased because his abilities are crazy good. He is a very aggressive player, if you couldn't tell by the abilities. The Furious Throw used to be a vertical ability, but now it is actually horizontal, which makes it significantly easier to hit enemies. They have, however, decreased the damage that it does. Chokehold has been mostly left alone, and it is a decent ability. However, you do need to be careful when using it, because if you chokehold one enemy and there's 3 more that are outside of that little radius, those enemies then have a free second to shoot you as many times as they can, and if they hit some headshots, they can do some pretty good damage to you. So I recommend using chokehold when you can get as many people in that hold at one time, or if you have a little bit of cover from maybe a little bin or some sort of obstacle on the battlefield to block that oncoming blaster fire. That final ability is the spin, which is, I use it sometimes just as a form of movement because of how quickly you'll get from point A to point B. However, it is very good at eliminating opponents. I like to slash my opponents once with a normal saber slash, and then I will quickly finish them off with a spin attack. And that is only for the default class soldiers, such as assault, heavy, officer, and specialist. That would not work on an enforcer or any enemy heroes. So I think I'm just going to let the clip of Maul run out. I am still working hard to grind out the Maul skin, but it is going to take some time. Also, EA announced that they are going to be reducing the amount of kills. Now, I don't expect them to reduce it a crazy amount. Like, it's still going to be a wild amount of kills to get for the old master skin, but I mean, if I had to guess, I'd probably say they're going to make it 2,500 rather than 5,000. But 2,500, that's still a lot of kills, and the community is still going to be struggling to get that. Think about that. 2,500 kills as Darth Maul for each player of the community. You can only have one Darth Maul on each battlefield at a time. So the fact that, oh man, I'm not going to complain about it anymore. It is what it is. But just don't be expecting the skin anytime soon, because it does have some crazy requirements. Anyway, that's going to end it for this video. I do hope y'all enjoyed, and I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.